Thank you, Robert. Okay. So we're going to learn about the PACE program because I learned a lot when I was just going through this because, again, I only knew a little bit. I don't think I could have ever explained this very well to anyone. Okay. So one thing I learned, PACE is, I think there is one that's called the PACE program, but all programs that provide money to homeowners that goes on the property tax that act the same way, whether they're called PACE or whether they're called something else, they're all PACE programs. That's kind of the name of the general program where buyers where owners can borrow this money. Okay, so there's like the HERO program and there's a couple others they talk about throughout here, but they're all considered PACE type programs. So this goes for all of them, not just the one called PACE, because it's all statutory. It's all, they all by statute. Okay. What are they? Okay. They're programs offered by various governmental entities to provide property owners with a means to finance conservation improvements and pay for them through an assessment on the owner's property. Okay. So they are for residential, and I think you can get them for commercial, but this whole article talks only about residential. And it's not just clean. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody, someone have a question?
Are you going to share the screen?
Oh, maybe. Sorry. I started up here, okay. And then we just talked about that. Okay. So they finance all kinds of stuff. And I think later on, we're going to get to a list, but there are other programs, HERO, California First. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Those are all PACE programs. So they're all included in this thing. I know there is one called the PACE program, but this is all of these. Okay. Who administers them? So the money comes from local agencies. And so they have forces, task forces that in it. I mean, I don't think you need to know that, but not a big deal. Oh yeah. Okay. What types of properties? Okay, so here it is. What types of properties do they programs do they finance? Solar panels, Energy Star core plumbing systems, duct replacement, electric vehicle plug-in stations, pool circulating pumps, water heaters, furnaces, stuff like that, right? We see a lot of water heaters, we see a lot of stuff, but those are all the different kinds of things that they can help someone with. Okay, where does the funding come from? Honestly, I don't care, and I hope you don't care either. I mean, you don't care where the money comes from. We just know it's there. Okay, how do the programs work? Okay, so a homeowner, okay, I cut this down. It was paragraphy and I cut it down. Generally, a homeowner who is interested in adding a conservation improvement to their home is first advised to have an energy audit conducted on the property to identify areas of potential conservation improvements. Now, they might already know what they need, but if they're saying, well, I think I'm going to borrow to put in a new water heater, and someone says, well, maybe there's other things you could do too, then they might want to get this energy audit conducted. And I'm not sure if any of you know who conducts those. Does your energy company come out and do it for you? I don't know who conducts those. Okay. Okay. After that, a homeowner contacts the program and submits an application to find out how much they are approved to borrow. Okay. The homeowner then chooses which of the improvements he or she wants to add to the home. Next, the homeowner selects a contractor who usually has to be from a list of programs approved or certified contractors. So they're going to give you a list. You're going to select someone. You're going to select what you want, someone from their list. The entity administering the program will then enter into an agreement with the property owner where the entity agrees to pay the cost of the improvement. So we're going to have an agreement. An assessment lien is placed on the property for the amount owed plus interest. Okay.
Cindy, did they look at I'm sorry for interrupting. Did they look at the financial situation of the borrower, or just?
We're going to get to that because I think they don't. They don't have. They're not subject to the lender rules. Okay. They're not, and they don't have the ability. I think there's a question on that. I don't think they have the ability to do that. It's not part of their mandate, or it says they can't, is probably what it says. Okay. So, okay, then after the work is performed, the PACE program entity pays the contractor. Then the property owner repays the entity for the improvements as a special tax assessment on the property tax bill, generally over a 5 to 20 year period. The property owner pays the lien in the same manner they would pay property taxes. So whatever your property taxes were before, they're just increased by this, depending on the period that you're paying it over. Okay. Is the assessment lien similar to a property tax lien? And the answer is yes. And the reason that I say this is that your property tax liens are higher than everything. And that's a problem. This goes before your mortgage. Okay, what you borrow on here. Okay. Because it's like a property tax loan. It shows up on the property tax bill, and it would be a property tax lien if not paid. Okay, the PACE lien is also similar to a property tax lien, a super priority lien. Such a lien is senior to all private liens, including any deeds of trust for existing mortgages. That's a big deal, right? So they're going to get paid one way or the other on this house, right? Before anyone gets paid. Okay, how much can a homeowner borrow? The amount that can be financed by a PACE lien is both limited by state law, or that state law requires that a homeowner to participate in a PACE program. The combination of the assessment for the PACE lien and the property taxes for the property not exceed 5% of the market value of the property at the time of the assessment. So you take how much you want to borrow and how much you're already paying for property taxes, and it's not supposed to be more than 5% of the market value of the property. Although down here it says most programs also currently limit the amount of any project to no more than 10 to 15% of the market value of the property. So I didn't understand that. So up here it says 5%. I didn't really understand this, and I'm sorry, I don't have an answer on it. But I'm going to find out, because I think this is weird. It says that they currently limit the amount of the project to no more than 10 to 15% of the market value of the property, and will not permit the amount of the lien and any mortgage debt to exceed the assessed value of the property when the lien is imposed. So basically, if you don't have any equity in your property, you're not going to be able to take this loan. You have to have at least as much equity as the loan you want to take. Which makes sense, because if they're going to get paid, there has to be equity, and they're not putting themselves in any position where they're not going to get paid. Okay, what other types of requirements does a homeowner have to meet to be eligible for PACE? Okay, here's the eligibility. They have to be current on property taxes. They must have no judgment liens or federal or state tax liens. They can't be in bankruptcy. They can't be subject to a bankruptcy proceeding, whatever that means. The homeowner cannot be in bankruptcy or subject to a bankruptcy proceeding. I think those are the same. The homeowner must not be delinquent on any mortgages. The homeowner cannot have been late on their property taxes, or only have been late for a certain amount of times. I guess each program is a little bit different on that. So, and then there are limits on the combined total amount of the principal amount of the assessment and the mortgage as a percentage of the value of the property. That's what we just saw above with the. Okay, so I guess that's what they're saying is in addition, the assessment and the mortgage can't be typically not more than 90% of the value of the property. Okay, it precludes underwater properties from taking loans. Okay, does a PACE loan compare to a home equity loan or a cash out refinance? Generally, PACE financing is much easier to obtain compared to getting a home equity or doing a cash out refinance. The eligibility requirements are straightforward compared to the often complicated and sometimes bewildering requirements of mortgage underwriters. Also, generally, as long as the program requirements are met, programs generally do not look at credit scores or employment history, right? Because the property's got it all. What if you don't pay it back? They're not going to be out anything. They got a first lien, so they're probably a little easier to give. A PACE lien can be transferred to a subsequent owner, unlike a mortgage. However, for reasons discussed in section 3, which we're going to get to, it may be difficult to transfer it with the PACE lien. Okay. Okay. The main disadvantage of PACE financing is that interest rates and costs are generally higher than mortgage loans, significantly more for homeowners with good credit. Okay, so if you have good credit, there's no reason to do a PACE loan if you can get a different kind of loan. Current interest rates on PACE programs, and I don't know how current this is, tend to be in the range of 6 to 9% compared to rates in 3 to 5. You know, at the time of the Q&A, right now they're still 3 to 5. They're even, you know, maybe a little higher, but the PACE loans are 6 to 9. So it's not usually something that you would do if you could get a different kind of loan. They also have prepayment penalties. So it's not just the loan, but the penalties. And anyway, I don't know. So this is important. Some PACE programs carry prepayment penalties. I would never want someone to have a PACE unless they are 100% sure they're staying in this house till forever, to have a PACE loan. And we're going to get to that, because the biggest problem I see about PACE loans are that because they are in first position, you can't refinance. You can't get a new you can't sell the property to a buyer who's getting a new mortgage with a PACE loan, because the lenders won't lend if there's a PACE. And we're going to get to that. They talk about it ad nauseum. But to me, that's the downside. But by the same token, I've not seen that. All these years, I've not ever seen there be a problem with the buyer's lender not letting them take over the PACE loan if they agree to. So this might not be as I mean, it might be that lenders, you know, just think somewhere I would have heard of this in, you know, in 10 years, but I haven't. Okay. Do PACE loans have the same disclosure requirements as mortgage lenders? And it says this like 100 times in this article. PACE programs are not lenders as defined in federal law, and therefore are not subject to truth in lending, RESPA, any of that stuff. Okay, so you need to you know, if you know someone and you're encouraging them or explaining to them about PACE loans, they're not, the lenders are not subject to this. So you, person taking the loan, you better understand what you're getting, because you're not getting any disclosures. Okay, so you need to either get some explanations or figure out what it is. Okay, what are the tax benefits of PACE improvements? Not really anything. I don't think they don't really think they don't think that. I'm just going to paraphrase all this. It's unlikely that it would be deductible. I guess the cost of, yeah, some people they talk a lot in here. Some PACE programs say that it's deductible, but there's really no evidence that it is, and so there's really no big tax benefits to taking a PACE loan. I don't even know why they had that question. Okay, disclosure issues. Does the seller have to disclose that the property is subject to a PACE assessment?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I was going to call this up. I was going to have this ready too, and I forgot. Okay, paragraph 8B4 in the contract. I'm going to find it so I can talk about it more intelligently while we're doing this. Okay, 8B. Oh, well, never mind. There is no 8B4. Okay. There is no 8B4 in the RPA. It ends at 8B3. And it doesn't, and it's not about this, it's about appraisal. So it obviously got put somewhere else, and we'll have to find out where it is, but you have to disclose it. Okay, you have to, obviously you have to disclose it. The contract says you have to disclose it. You also, I don't know, I didn't realize I should have looked at that before. A seller has an obligation to, paragraph 11A, and the seller property questionnaire to disclose all material facts. And clearly, if you have a PACE lien that's on your property tax, that would be a material fact. Right, this type of assessment would qualify as a material fact at a value or desirability of the property. Also, you're required to provide a preliminary report to the buyer, and on the preliminary report, the PACE lien should be. PACE liens are supposed to be showing on preliminary reports, all different kinds. So, you know, the buyer should have that information.
Cindy, I have a question. When you say this is a PACE loan, is this almost considered like a HERO program type thing?
Okay. The HERO program is a type of PACE loan.
Okay, so,
It's not the company pays. We're talking about PACE loan, this
Right.
type of loan, right?
right, but you also mentioned that the PACE loan is like the payment is put in their property taxes. Is that correct?
Correct,
Is-
all PACE loans, whether
like
it's
a-
Hero or PACE or any of those, yes,
Is it considered a special assessment?
yes.
Okay, so you mentioned that it's a special assessment, right? So then when you say that it stands on the first position superior to the first loan, why is that?
I mean, why does it get that type of?
Position, yeah, the first position is the mortgage.
Because when the legislature made made laws that said, we're gonna let you have these kind of loans under these conditions. And they said, and if you make them, you get to, you get your money back no matter what, you're in first position. That's just it. The legislature gave them that power.
Well, the reason why I was asking this, I had the same situation as before, remember? Remember that
Mhm.
situation
Mhm.
where it was a special assessment on the on the prelim, but it was not on the first position. There's the first
Well,
mortgage.
it just is. It might not show on there, but it just is. They get paid first. It's the nature of the loan.
Okay, got it.
Of
So
that type
they
of
just
loan.
want to make sure that it is shown.
Cindy, don't taxes take first position? Is that why?
Yeah, because this is property taxes.
Right, that's why it takes first position.
Because it's on your property tax, right? Exactly.
Got it.
And
Okay.
your property taxes is right, first position.
So
So
in paying the property taxes, when you're in a transaction, it will show two bills to be paid. The property tax original and the PACE mortgage. Is
are
that
you
correct?
asking? Oh, I don't think so. I
I
think it
don't
just
think
shows
No,
all the property tax bill.
yeah, it doesn't show two separate bills. It's just one bill.
Got it. All right. Okay.
You know how like when you go into real estate, there's all those special assessments, wouldn't it just show in there? Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it shows there and it shows red when you get that.
yeah. I haven't seen one that had it, but yeah, okay. Shows it in red, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Do they appear on the preliminary title report? Yes, they're supposed to. What if the seller, and Tessa's right, they might be the 10th item on the preliminary report. You can't tell that they're in first position, but that's just by law.
Right. Okay.
Okay, what if the seller does not disclose the lien? The failure of the seller to disclose the lien would have the same consequence as the seller not disclosing any other material fact regarding the property. The seller could be liable for damages that the buyer suffers as a result of the seller's failure to disclose. In this case, the damages could potentially be the dollar amount they have to pay to clear the lien, right? I would assume that would be their damages, is getting rid of the lien, right?
Cindy, question. I mean, if this is a tax and it has to be paid at the time of a sale, doesn't it get
No,
paid?
it's not that kind of lien. It's on your property tax. It does not get paid at the time of sale. It
Okay.
goes with the property tax.
Oh, I see. Okay, because
That's why you have to disclose it. If you're going to pay it off, you wouldn't have to disclose it, right?
Because I've seen like in the agent disclosures, private remarks, where some agents will say there's a PACE loan or Hero loan, it will be paid off at the close of escrow.
You can pay it off, but it's not a requirement. So that means sellers agreeing to do that.
Okay. Thanks
but
for clarifying.
If that agreement isn't made, then it doesn't get paid off.
Okay.
Okay. So then they ask if there's liability to the agents, okay? And of course, the answer is the same as it would be for any other disclosure question. If you know, and you know your seller's not disclosing it, yes, you could be liable because you also know. So if your seller doesn't disclose it and you don't know about it at all, then it's the seller's problem. But if you're aware of it, and if you read the title of preliminary report, I hope you're aware of it. Then you need to, yeah. So the agent has an obligation to disclose all material facts, right? If the seller who is under a contractual obligation to disclose material facts does not properly disclose a material fact, it is hard to see how the listing agent would know it or could know it. But in this case, it, you know, if it's on the prelim, you're gonna know it. So it's a little bit different because of the prelim. Because if there was no prelim, then we'd have no way to know, right? But that's the whole, but of course it has to be, otherwise they wouldn't have the priority either. Okay. Currently, can an owner of property with a mortgage enter into a PACE agreement without violating their own loan terms? And not such agreement lender would violate. Okay. The uniform security instruments used for deeds of trust for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back loans, which is pretty much everything, prohibit the borrower from creating liens which take priority over the lender's lien without the consent of the lender. So technically, if you were going to take a PACE type lien, you would have to get permission from your lender. I don't know that anyone does that. I've never been asked this before, which is why I believe that people don't know this and that nobody's really enforcing it. But that's what it says. And it's the law. Which words have, yeah. So, and then, you know, as they say, almost everybody has Freddie Mac or a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. And they also say, I'm sure we'll get to it, but sometimes I just can't stop talking. They also say that even other lenders, sometimes they just like to do loans that conform just in case they want to sell them later. Okay. As of July 6, 2010, the Federal Housing Finance Agency directed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to make sure all loan documents require approval or consent for a PACE loan. So since 2010, which is before I came, and I still have never had this come up. Okay. Right. Also note that many conventional loans, even if not intended to be sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, will be made to conform to their standards. So, okay. So therefore, generally a buyer cannot enter into such an agreement if they have a conventional loan which conforms to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac guidelines without the consent of the lender, which is unlikely to be given. As for loans which do not conform, while it is possible that they omit such provisions, it is not likely. So we know Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines say that. We don't know about other lenders, but they probably all say that, right? So it would seem to me this would be a deal breaker for these for PACE programs, right? Because everyone has a mortgage practically, but it's not. People are taking them out, so I'm assuming they're doing it without permission.
Cindy, they also, like the solar, they also added on the debt ratio of the buyer.
This one too. Yeah. Do PACE programs require the lender to approve? Okay.
What did you say, Tess? I didn't understand that.
When you have a solar, you know, when there's a loan or a lease on the property, the lender needs to know about that because they have to be added to their debt ratio. It is another payment on the buyer. It's another payment. That
right, but it's not a lien ahead of theirs. It's for a different reason. They have to tell their lender. Right.
Because if it's like $74 payment on the, let's say the solar system, it's added to their debt ratio.
I mean, unless it's not going to be paid off, right?
No, we're talking about solar, and when you get solar, and you're paying a monthly fee, right?
They have the loan on the PACE, right? Isn't
yeah.
that
Oh, for solar, for the solar.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I can't figure out. Sometimes I think they ask the same question twice. Do PACE programs require the lender to approve the PACE lien? Didn't we just answer that? PACE programs require, the lender.
Yeah, the lender has to approve.
Oh, this is the other way around. I'm sorry. This is not, okay. So they're asking if the PACE program requires something from the lender, and they don't. Okay, so they don't need to have proof that you've got permission from your lender. They don't care. Okay, so what would be the consequence of if a borrower enters into a PACE lien agreement in violation of their loan terms? The lender could, in accordance with the loan terms, demand that the owner pay off the lien, and if the owner does not, could declare the loan in default and pursue a foreclosure action. However, to date, it does not appear that lenders have taken such actions. No one's looking to take your house back because you haven't paid off your lien. Or because you took a lien and it's just on there. So as you can see, they're saying that so far there's been no consequence, which is why we haven't heard about it, right? Can a homeowner with a PACE lien refinance? And again, the answer is no, because they won't, no one's going to refinance with a high priority, a lien that's higher priority than the refinance. So it's the same stuff that we just went through.
Yeah, because it's
And-
kind of like saying if it's in the taxes and they're not going to foreclose on you because you haven't paid your taxes unless it's been like 5 years. So yeah.
Well, but I would assume, no, sorry. I would assume, oh, Veronica, I'm on line live. I told them not to answer it. Sorry. I'll call you back. Bye. Okay. I forgot what we were talking about. I'm sorry. Valerie, what was the question?
It was Valerie's question.
I just
Yeah.
said, what I was saying was because it's put into your taxes, then the lender's not going to foreclose on your property because of your taxes. Usually that's why we
Right,
probably haven't
right.
heard of it.
Right. And they say they're not anyway, but the lender could foreclose on your mortgage because you took out a PACE lien that you didn't tell them about. But they're not doing it, is what they're saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they just keep repeating the same stuff out here. Okay. What are the consequences of not being able to sell the, oh, wait a minute, did I miss one? I missed a whole bunch. Okay, can a person with a PACE lien sell their property with the lien? Okay, so again, supposedly if the conventional lender won't allow it, then they can't. Then the seller has to pay it off or the buyer has to pay it off. Someone has to pay it off at the close of escrow to get the loan. What I don't understand is why, if you're refinancing, you wouldn't just pay it off as part of the refinance, just pay it off and refinance. I would think that's
because the property taxes when you're refinancing has nothing to do with the taxes. The taxes will not change even if you're refinancing. It's based on how much you bought.
But I know, but you can pay off a PACE type lien before, if you still owe on property taxes for 3 more years or something, you can pay it off and get it off the taxes.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So, because we pay them at closing, sometimes we pay them off at closing. And I guess if maybe that's why I don't hear about it, because that's maybe what happens is if the buyer's lender, but it's interesting. Let's go through the rest of this as far as selling your property, because I found this to be pretty interesting. Okay. This is all repeat. What are the consequences of not being able to sell? Okay, so obviously you guys know that you'd have less buyers if you couldn't sell. Wait a minute. Everybody's not offering to the board. Oh, it does say it, and I was gonna talk about this. The HERO program, but specifically the HERO program, not any other one, is offering to subordinate its liens in certain instances for a fee. So we'll subordinate so you can get a mortgage if you pay us a fee. Okay, but note that this is not a true subordination, as California by law gives the assessment lien a superior priority. You can't pay to change the law. Okay, so I don't know why, if HERO's trying to fool the lenders or I don't know who they're trying to fool, but clearly it doesn't make sense, right? Okay. So has anyone ever had a buyer who couldn't get a loan because there was a lien, a PACE type lien on the property? Ever? Maybe we need to ask a lender about this. I think that will be our next question. Okay.
Send a question. I'm sorry, I missed that part. So if anybody's trying to get a PACE HERO or any type of that loan, is it they have to ask for the permission from the lenders of permission, or does it work the other way around?
No, they have to, the homeowner has to get permission from their lender But they don't have to give that to the PACE program. The PACE program
Okay.
doesn't care if they see it or not.
Okay, so the homeowner is the
But
one
the
that.
homeowner has, yes, still has to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're saying too, is what are the consequences of not being able to sell to buyers who are using conventional financing? And they basically say, if you were doing it, even if they would do it, it would change it will change your debt to income ratio, right? Because they're going to include this loan in your debt to income ratio, so it's not going to help you. Is there anything else I wanted to do for the cancellation, right? Oh, just for whatever, if when you sign for a PACE, any kind of PACE program, by law, you have a 3-day right of cancellation. So if you sign it and the next day or 2 days later, you get, signer's remorse. Didn't you, when I first worked here, people thought you had a 3-day right of first refusal on the purchase contract. I don't know if there used to be one, but a lot of people ask about that, but no one asks that anymore. Okay. Okay, so the new law provides clear notice that delinquent PACE assessments are given super priority status as part of the tax bill over other recorded obligations, and that lenders require these super liens to be paid off before any new financing can be obtained. They're pretty clear on that. Finally, this law prohibits making money or percentage representations of increased value to a property owner regarding the effect of the financial improvements. So they can't, and you shouldn't say, whoa, I think if you put in the solar panels and take a PACE lien and put in the solar panels, it'll increase your property value by so much. You're not supposed, I assume it's them that can't say it. They're not telling you can't really, but you shouldn't. Okay, you're not, it's such a number to pull out of a hat of what it will increase, and it, depends on a whole lot of factors. So, it depends on whether or not the buyer wants them, wants these improvements, or would have rather not had the solar. We've seen people have to take off the solar before closing escrow. So anyway, just be careful with that. Almost like I need to pay off the lien. Yeah. Do I have anything else? I was gonna do, oh, let's just do these really quickly.
So Cindy, my question to you is, because I hear this a lot with some agents talking about the solar system, that they actually, they keep saying that, okay, you're gonna be paying $74 on your monthly rate for your solar panel. Actually, the going rate for electricity right now is $250. So if you take in this $74 solar panel, it's really more an advantage for you. So we are not allowed to even say anything like that, right? Or, but I see a lot of agents saying that though.
Yeah. And you know what? When it backfires, it backfires. I mean, you could say it and not get sued for 50 times. And then the 51st person. So it's always hard to tell you what not to, what not to do and not to say, because most of the time those things are okay, but sometimes they're not.
Got it.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about is, it says, what does it mean that there is a contingency in favor of the seller? They're talking about if you have a PACE lien, and then they talk about the buyer too. But if it shows, if you haven't dealt with it in the RPA, the seller has no duty. I mean, they have a duty to disclose it, right? So they should put it on the SPQ or wherever it should be disclosed. But there's no duty of the seller to pay it off or to do anything if no one says anything in the RPA. But again, if the buyer bought the property not knowing about it, then that might be another story. So so they call it kind of a contingency, that if the buyer says, I don't want to take it, the seller can cancel the sale. And if the buyer says, I don't want to pay for it, no, the buyer says, right, I don't want to pay for it, the seller can cancel. And if the seller says, then I won't pay for it either, the buyer can cancel. So both, if this issue isn't resolved, it leaves both parties with an out. If they, anywhere in the transaction. Which states the seller will pay off monetary liens of record. What about it says you'll pay off monetary liens of record. This is not included in that. That's probably the biggest thing that people miss, is that this is not a lien that gets paid off at the close of escrow like every other lien in the world, practically. And so that's a big deal. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. We didn't get to, solar. There's still a whole section on solar, but, we'll do that. We'll pick that up, on another day. I'm trying to do the last Monday of the month to do disclosure stuff. I'm trying to kind of do contracts one, disclosure one, MLS one, and ethics. So, anyway, thank you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to
Cindy-
ask now or anytime.
Cindy, so it sounds like we have a responsibility also. Let's say if we're representing the buyer and the seller's agent has not disclosed, or the seller has not disclosed, then we need to, before we write the RPA or the purchase agreement, we have to do our due diligence just to make sure that
Well,
there's.
and hopefully, yeah, I mean, I honestly think you should always have a property, whatever they call it, a
The prelim.
preliminary.
Yeah.
Yeah, prelim. And because it tells you other things too, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and that would mean you would be able to tell your buyer, I see on the prelim this, right? And the seller should still disclose it, but I'd rather have them know than have a lawsuit afterwards, right? Better we should resolve it. And if you're the buyer, right, then you need to you could resolve it in the RPA.
Okay.
Seller to pay off case lien.
Okay.
Right,
Sounds
right.
good. Thank you. Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, everyone, I'm around, although I have 2 contracts and a person to talk to. I know, next. Okay. Bye.
Cindy, your dismount is always just so amazing. Okay, bye.
Well, I did mention that I had, for some reason, I was thinking this class ended at 3:30 and I have a 4 o'clock phone conference, but I think she's paying attention, so she knows I'm still on here. But
All right.
anyway.
There you go.
And two new agent contracts to get out. Yay.
Yay.
Robert, are you looking for some great statement that
No,
has you thinking for the next couple days?
It's very Mike Ferry-ish. When you go to a Mike Ferry seminar, he does
Yeah.
4 days, and at the very end, he goes, "Okay, thanks for coming."
Yeah.
Like that's the
Yeah.
end. And Cindy's very much that. It's 30 minutes of boom, boom, boom. Then, okay, I'm around. Like it's just.
That's because I got stuff to do. Sometimes I don't got stuff to do.
Call me if you need me.
Exactly. Call all of us if you need any of us.
I
We
love
got
it.
you, Cindy. We love you.
Okay.
You're the best. All right, good job,
Says
everybody.
that to everybody in case you guys don't know.
Nobody's.
Okay, bye.
No, oh, that is not true. I do not say that to everybody. I don't say they're the worst. I just don't say anything.
Okay, fine. Bye. Now, can I go?
Yes, you could go. You could
I got
go.
a call I got a call to make.
No, but nobody says this can't be fun. All right, good job, everybody.